Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I thought we were starting to hear the end of the old cooped up in COVID stories. People going out and doing crazy stuff to, let some steam off or something. It seemed like a lot of that happened last year. It's still happening. Dick, the Condor boss, sent me this story out of Canada. Ontario police caught a 14-year-old driving over 200 kilometers per hour with two other teens in the car. So 200 kilometers per hour break down to about 120 miles per hour, a little bit over that. $1.20, as I'd like to say. The story's from MSN.com. Over the past year, Ontario has doubled down on its stunt driving penalties. Stunt driving. That's what they call it in Canada, stunt driving. We might call it reckless driving over here, but it's often drag racing or exhibitions of speed, things like that. People doing crazy stuff in cars, stunt driving. But this recent stunt driving charge goes to a teen who's been charged with reckless driving even before he finished high school. In a press release posted by Ontario Provincial Police, the OPP, officers with a Lakeshore detachment stated a 14-year-old was driving 209 kilometers per hour in an 80 kilometer per hour zone on March 17th at around 1:40 in the morning. They caught a Chevrolet Camaro going 129 kilometers per hour over the posted speed limit near Wallace Line on Essex County Road 22 in Lakeshore. According to police, there were two other passengers in the car who were both 13 years old. And again, this happened at 1:40 in the morning. 1:40 in the morning. And I'm saying that March 17th, around 1:40 in the morning, this would be Thursday morning. Like, are these kids really supposed to be out that late on a Thursday morning? Police said that the driver was charged with stunt driving and the vehicle has been impounded. They'll do that in Canada. They'll impound your car for a little while. Your car will get a timeout. It goes to the penalty box. They should call it that because it's happening in Canada. In the release, Essex County OPP Traffic and Marine Staff Sergeant Jamie Smith said that speeding is classified as one of the big four in road fatality categories, which included distracted and impaired driving and not using a seatbelt. I suspect that alcohol or DWI would be also in that group. The inexperience of this driver, coupled with the extraordinarily excessive speed, could have resulted in 3 very young lives being lost. Again, things that could have happened. Thankfully, our officers are always out on our community roadways conducting enforcement. In this case, these young people are safe today because of that. So yeah, they're ripping around at 120 miles an hour at 1:40 in the morning, and they blow by a cop. And trust me, it's really easy to spot a car going that fast. The only tricky part is catching it, but it's not that tricky. According to the Highway Traffic Act, you can be fined up to $260 in Ontario for driving a motor vehicle without a license. So the kid doesn't have a license. He's out at 1:40 in the morning, and he's doing about 120 miles per hour. Car has been impounded, and now there's going to be all kinds of ramifications for him. For those with a license who are caught stunt driving, you could have your license suspended for 30 days. The question is, what happens if you haven't got a license? Might make it harder to get your license. On top of that, the vehicle does get impounded for at least 14 days. 14 days the vehicle gets impounded. Provincial Constable Stephanie Moniz confirmed that the car hadn't been stolen and that no other additional details could be shared at this time. So what we suspect is that the kid had access to a car, had a couple kids who wanted to go for a ride, and they all jumped in and went out and were stunt driving at high speeds in Canada, which sounds like fun till you get caught, and then all of a sudden you realize all kinds of bad things are going to happen, and whoever actually does own the car won't have it for 2 weeks. And I know some people say, Steve, that's unfair. Well, you really do need to control who's got your car, because remember, the car wasn't stolen. So somebody got the keys and drove off. Now, it's possible that somebody could go, hey, that's my kid. I went to bed. He's never been in trouble before. I fell asleep, and he went out in the driveway with my keys, unlocked the car, rolled it down the driveway, got it away from the house, and then fired it up. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are possible here, but I don't think it's that bad of a thing to impound the car for 14 days to teach somebody a lesson. But one of the things you have to realize, and I am now speaking to you as an elder statesman of driving. I've been driving for a long time. The day I turned 16, I got my driver's license. Literally the day, my birthday. I was at Secretary of State's office the day I turned 16. I got my learner's permit just a month or two after I turned 15. So, I mean, I've been driving as long as you can, basically. And I can tell you a couple things. I've been in cars going fast, okay? And I have been in a vehicle doing 150 miles per hour, legally. Just trust me on this. I'm an attorney for 31 years. I know what's legal, what's not legal. I've been in a vehicle doing 150 miles an hour, legally. And I'm here to tell you that it's not that different from being in a vehicle doing 100 miles an hour or a vehicle doing 60 miles an hour. Because all these things are relative. And if you're on a wide open space and just zooming along with nothing to gauge speed by, it's very, very difficult to tell the difference between 150 and 100. It is. And so what's bizarre is that a lot of people assume that, if I get in a car and the car does 200 miles per hour, that'll be really, really cool, and it'll feel cool, and it'll seem cool, and it'll look cool. Not necessarily. It might look cool when you see the speedometer saying 200, but depending on how close you are to things passing by you, it might not seem like you're going that fast. But bad things can happen at high speeds, and they happen much more quickly than they do at low speeds. So, for instance, if you're in a vehicle doing 150 miles per hour, and you're out on the open road as opposed to a closed track with professional drivers, you're out on the open road, and all of a sudden a deer is standing by the side of the road, and the deer is not moving. When you go by that deer at 150, depending on how you look at it, that deer passed you at 150 miles an hour. And if that deer had been in the road, it would have gotten really ugly for the deer and you in the car. And there's other things that can happen because remember, deer don't go out on planned routes and show up on appointment. They wander into the road when they feel like it. Sometimes they bolt into the road and you don't, so try doing a course correction at 150 when you've got half a second to respond. Also, there might be other vehicles in the road. We've seen these pop up on YouTube. Some idiot's out driving 120 miles an hour trying to get away from the cops and all of a sudden runs into traffic. Literally, hitting cars and stuff. You're driving along the road at 100 miles an hour and you go around a curve and you find that there's an accident there not too long ago and there's chunks of broken stuff in the road. Hitting something like that at 60 miles an hour might be bad. Hitting it at $120 could be a lot worse. And I've even heard of accidents before where kids are driving at night and they're going so fast that their headlights only go out so far. And they actually talk about driving faster than the useful limit of your headlights because as you speed up, what appears in your headlights is so close to your car that you can get to a speed where if something showed up in your headlights, you wouldn't have a chance to respond. Or if you did, it would be a fractional situation. And the other thing is that if you have less time to respond, you're more likely to make a sudden change, which you don't want to do at high speeds. You can't turn on a dime at 120 miles per hour. So it's extremely important to talk to young people who are around the age where they're getting interested in driving or they're starting to drive or getting a learner's permit. And I know they give them the lecture at driver's ed, but driver's ed is taught by teachers who are uncool. So you have to explain to them and say, look, you have to understand that getting in a car and doing 100 miles an hour might sound like a cool thing to be able to say, I drove a car 100 miles an hour. But you have to understand how dangerous it is and the bad things that can happen. And I'm not listing the bad things so that you know how to avoid them. I'm listing the bad things to discourage you from doing it. And if somebody really wants to do that, there are places you can go where you can do it legally. There's courses, there's racetracks you can go to, for instance. And I know where there's a few in my area. If I want to go there and race my Viper, I can go out there and race my Viper if I wanted to. Don't feel like it, but I could if I wanted to. But I've been in a car, and I've told the story many times. I shot a video about it, where I got to sit on the floor of Richard Petty's Superbird and do laps at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. I was sitting on the floor hanging onto a roll bar. Don't know how fast we were going then because a car doesn't have a speedometer in it. But, race cars often don't. So that's another story altogether. But kid, the 14-year-old in Canada, whoever's car he was driving, impounded for 2 weeks. He's going to have to pay some fines, for instance, $260 for driving a motor vehicle without a license. And the question then is what happens to his permanent record, What happens to his driving record and his ability to get a license now that he's been caught doing something like this? So that's not good. But again, Ontario police caught a 14-year-old driving over 200 kilometers per hour with two other teens in the car, and they're all getting a big timeout. From MSN, and Dick sent it to me, Condor Boss. Thanks. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. What do you call it when a snowman throws a tantrum? A meltdown.